Here in Module 5, we want to just make a few general concluding observations. Jim and I, in very grand terms, because you've been immersed in a great many images and a great many ideas. There's a great many grand themes that emerge from here. We just want to touch on a few, and you can pick out some of your own. One is, though, Jim, I remember years ago when I was actually a graduate student, and there was a guest lecturer speaking, and someone said to him, "What's the difference between Westernization and modernization when you're dealing with Japan?" And the professor said, "That's a very good question." I don't think he answered it, but he did say, good question. And it is a good question, because clearly Japan was Westernizing, and they were looking to the West, and they were bringing in many things from the West, directly or by way of influence, films, phonographs, art, political systems, so on and so forth. But it was also they were doing things in their own unique way. And I think that when you look at this, you speak of Japan's modernization, and you must say that it involves Westernization, but it also involves a great deal more. And you have to be aware of those differences. The title of our MOOC was Visualizing the Birth of Modern Tokyo. And I think one of the things that comes through, it's not something that I would have been sensitive to in my 30s or so when I first began to teach, or in my 20s when I was first studying Japan as a graduate student. It is the notion that modern Japan really begins with Meiji, but fantastic developments take place in the 1920s and 1930s. One of those developments is militarization and authoritarianism. But also what we see is a remarkable efflorescence of energies directed at all sorts of modern culture. And much of my research has been on early post-war Japan. And it's only by appreciating those years before the horrid years of outright war and the destruction of Tokyo once again, if you don't appreciate the dynamism of those years, you can't understand how Japan recovers after World War II and becomes the country that we see today. And that also involves Westernization, but also a much more complex dynamic. But I'm very struck when I go back by how much was going on in the 1920s and 1930s that was not just militarization.